In this video, I'm going to be explaining the complete timeline of Marceline the Vampire Queen, Adventure Time's half demon, half human, from start to end. A lot of people don't understand her story or how her powers work, so hopefully this video helps. Marceline's story starts over 1,000 years ago and is one of the most interesting in Adventure Time. Anyways, to start, we have to go back to the beginning. Marceline is the child of Hunson Abadir, the powerful demon who rules over the Nightosphere, a dimension of suffering and confusion, very reminiscent of Hell, as it was inspired by the artwork of Hieronymus Bosch, specifically the piece The Garden of Earthly Delights. Marceline's mother is a human named Elise, who we do not know as much about. She was only present for the beginning of Marceline's life, due to the fact that she passed away when Marceline was very young. All we know about her is that she was the only caretaker of Marceline during the first 5 years of her life. Being the daughter of one of the most powerful demons in Adventure Time, Marceline was born with the ability to suck souls, obtaining the power that those souls contained. But due to being part human, she is not immortal. She could be hurt relatively easily, and other than her ability to suck souls, she is only human. Marceline was born 4 years before the Great Mushroom War, the nuclear war which killed the majority of humans, and over a longer period of time, most of the survivors. Marceline and her mother were lucky to survive the war, but as a result of nuclear fallout, Marceline's mother was very sick. And by the time Marceline was 5, she was beginning to die. She had hidden her illness from Marceline as to not worry her, while she had Marcy draw a map which led to a secret clubhouse, which in reality was a nuclear fallout shelter that she herself would not be able to make it to. In an event where the group was attacked by wolves, Marceline used her powers to save her mother and mistook the fear in her mother's eyes as directed at her rather than at the wolves. The result of this was Marceline believing that her mother abandoned her when she finally reached the shelter, when in reality she did for Marceline to survive, because she knew that she would not be able to make it there herself, and didn't want Marceline to see her die. She left a voice memo for Marceline, but she would not find it for much longer, as the phone was much higher off the ground than Marceline could reach. The shelter Marceline reached was already barren, the door no longer functioning, and the occupants being long gone, already being reduced to skeletons by the time Marceline arrived. Marceline would stay here for a while, but due to the lack of food and water, she would eventually have to go out to wander the world in a period of time which we know very little about. At some point when Marceline was about 7 years old, she was wandering through an abandoned city when she is discovered by Simon, a man who is being kept alive by the Ice Crown, a powerful artifact which grants the wearer the powers of ice and snow while eating away at their sanity. To comfort Marceline, Simon gives her a teddy bear named Hambo, who she will keep throughout the years. Right now, Hambo is just a teddy bear, but he will become very important to the story much later. Throughout this part of her life, Simon keeps Marceline safe, but due to the increase of danger, Simon repeatedly has to use the crown so he could defend her from the monsters. As he does this, he loses his mind at an increasing rate and eventually realizes that he too has to abandon her, fearing what is going to happen when his mind is fully lost. When Simon leaves, he first contacts Hunson Abadir, Marceline's father, who will end up taking care of Marceline until her late teens. Although Hunson Abadir is very powerful and can do a good job protecting her, Marceline eventually cuts him off, as he is cold and evil, which goes against her moral compass, but at this point Marceline is capable enough to fend for herself and can go independent. When Marceline was about 18 years old, vampires began to surface in U, cutting down on the already small population of remaining humans who had survived the war. Marceline became a vampire hunter, but due to her demonic powers, she was still alone, as people considered her a monster. Eventually, Marceline would befriend the leader of a tribe named Two Bread Tom, as she played her bass for them and eventually gained their trust. This is the time when Marceline gains her powers by sucking the souls of powerful vampires, gaining flight, invisibility, healing, and shapeshifting. The remaining humans were fixing a boat to sail away, but before they could complete this, they were attacked by the last army of vampires, led by the Vampire King, the strongest of them all. Marceline successfully defeated the remaining vampires, but while fighting the Vampire King, she was bitten. She slayed him, but in the process, became the last vampire in U. At this point, Marceline has all of her powers, and is now immortal due to becoming a vampire. Once the humans were gone, Marceline was left to roam the lands for hundreds of years. We don't know much about what she did during these years, but eventually, she would meet Princess Bubblegum, who showed up at one of her shows. The two eventually became romantically involved, wasting time and hanging out, but eventually Bubblegum's stress from managing the growing candy kingdom caused her to push Marceline away, which resulted in a strain in their relationship. Their dynamic was very toxic, and it eventually ended on a trip to the Glass Kingdom when the Glass people asked Bubblegum to help them stop a dragon, and Marceline decided to come with her. Marceline didn't take the situation as seriously, and eventually Bubblegum lashed out at her for this and told her to go home. But instead, Marceline sang a breakup song to her, which defeated the dragon and ended their relationship. The bad blood between them would last for a very long time after this, and eventually Marceline would end up dating a misogynistic magician named Ash. The two moved in together, living in the treehouse that would eventually belong to Finn and Jake. Eventually Marceline dumped him though, because he ended up selling Hambo to Maja the Sky Witch, who wanted it for its sentimental properties, which granted it a lot of power in many magic rituals. Eventually, Marceline meets Finn and Jake as they are squatting in her old house, and after messing with them for a bit, they become friends, and she decides to give the treehouse to them. Marceline writes a song with Finn about her relationship with her dad, who she hasn't seen in hundreds of years. Finn tries to help this by summoning Huns and Abadir before Marceline tells him not to. After being summoned, Abadir begins sucking the souls out of everyone in Oo, and Marceline gives up on stopping him. But before Marceline leaves, Finn plays the recording of the song, and for a moment, Marceline and her father reconcile, and it seems that he understands what he did. This moment is cut short, however, when Finn literally cuts him and banishes him back to the Nightosphere. Sometime after this, we find out that Ash never really got over the breakup, eventually putting Marceline in a magic coma and tricking Finn into entering her brain and retrieving the memory of their breakup. Throughout the journey, Finn finds a lot about Marceline's past and causes Marceline to believe that Ash and her were still together. Eventually, Finn convinces Marceline that he was lying, and she breaks up with him again. After this emotional event, Marceline decides that she will try to reconnect with her father, but it turns out that he just wants her to become the new ruler of the Nightosphere. He tricks her by giving her an amulet which turns her evil, causing her to temporarily embrace the position and take over the Nightosphere in a new form. Finn and Jake aren't aware of this, but they know something is up, so they travel to the Nightosphere to figure out what the problem is. But during the trip, they receive amnesia and have to piece together what's happening through videos on Jake's phone. Eventually, they find out what Hunson did, and after journeying through the Nightosphere for multiple weeks, they save Marceline by taking the amulet off. Before leaving her father once again, Marceline tells him that she is mad because he doesn't care for what she wants, and that she just wants him to understand that she is her own person. Eventually, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline are reunited, although only for a bit, through Finn and Jake. The group have their items stolen by the Door Lord, a being who opens magic doors through space and steals sentimental items from people. He locks himself behind a magic door, which only opens for a song that tells the truth. Marceline almost opens the door, singing a song about her feelings, singing about her animosity to Bubblegum, but how she secretly wants them to make up. Before completing the song, however, she gets embarrassed and stops right before the door opens. When the group is about to break up, Finn sings a song about friendship, which manages to open the door, loosening the tension between Princess Bubblegum and Marceline, and the group can retrieve their items. This is when it's revealed that Princess Bubblegum's item is the shirt that Marceline gave her when they started dating, and that Marceline didn't even have an item, and was just there to hang out with them. The Door Lord's main goal was to make people forgive each other, meaning in a way he succeeded. There's still bad blood between them, but at this point, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline are on speaking terms again. The next time Marceline and Princess Bubblegum are together is when Marceline tracks down the buyer of Hambo and asks Princess Bubblegum for help retrieving him, to which she agrees. During the journey, we still see their tension when Marceline acts immaturely and Princess Bubblegum doesn't take her seriously enough. But eventually, they reach the house, and after splitting up, Princess Bubblegum gets Hambo back from Maja by trading the shirt that Marceline gave her for it, as all Maja wants is an item with sentimental energy. This is the event that takes away most of the tension between them, and at this point, they are considered friends again. In a series of events where Simon temporarily regains his sanity, Marceline and Simon reconnect for the first time in 1,000 years, and the two use Hambo's sentimental energy to open a portal leading to the past, where Simon can talk to Betty, his fiancée who abandoned him 1,000 years ago, when Betty jumps through the portal, starting a chain of events which culminates in the series finale. Betty is really important to the story as a whole, but not for this video though. At this point, Marceline has been a vampire for so long that she is tired of it and wants to grow up. Marceline asks Princess Bubblegum to extract her vampiric essence in an attempt to become immortal once again. The procedure works, meaning she loses all of the powers she gained from the vampires, but because of this, the power of the 5 strongest vampires who she absorbed the souls of is released. This revives the Fool, a gnome-like vampire with the ability to float, the Empress, a luxurious vampire who has the power to turn invisible, the Hierophant, an old-timey vampire who abides by classic vampire rules with the power to shapeshift, the Moon, a creepy vampire with the power of healing, and of course the strongest of them all, the Vampire King. The group hunt them down one by one as Marceline regains the powers which she lost from each of them. Eventually, the only one left is the Vampire King, but he too is tired of the cycle and wishes to undergo Princess Bubblegum's procedure. Bubblegum agrees and performs the same procedure on him, siphoning his essence out into a bucket. On a trip to dispose of the essence, Peppermint Butler accidentally spills it, releasing a powerful being in the form of a cloud, which begins terrorizing Ooh. At this point, Marceline gives up, as she believes the cycle can never truly end. But hiding from the battle, the Ice King shows up, saying that they are 2 cowards, which motivates Marceline to join the fight. Marceline defeats the last vampire for the 2nd time, but once again, as she defeats it, it bites her neck, causing her to return to being the last vampire in Ooh. After the weeks she spent hunting the 5 vampires, Marceline reconsiders her choice, and now that she's grown a bit, she decides that she's okay with being immortal. During the summoning of Golb, the multiversal being who embodies chaos, Marceline sees Bubblegum get crushed by a monster, not knowing if she survived. After Marceline destroys the creature in anger, the two have a moment where Marceline talks about her feelings and how she was worried about Bubblegum. They then share a kiss, which either signifies the start of their relationship or that they had recently started dating again, sometime after the events of the Vampire King. We fast forward a few years. Now their relationship is much more established, and in a significantly healthier place than when they were together initially. We see Marceline still harboring some hesitancy, clearly not being used to having a stable relationship. When everything seems fine, PB and Marcy are called back to the Glass Kingdom, where they initially had their falling out. Once again, they have been asked to help fight off the dragon. Tensions build up again, as they are both reminded of their old conflicts. This peaks when Marceline is asked to sing the song again while Bubblegum is there, but this doesn't work, so she decides to visit the fallout shelter that she hid in as a child, so she could maybe gain inspiration for a new song. While this happens, Princess Bubblegum tries her own solution, and almost succeeds. In the shelter, Marceline finds the message that her mother left, finally realizing that she wasn't abandoned, before returning to the Glass Kingdom so she could help Bubblegum. Fighting the dragon, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline end up trapped, believing that they are going to die in a cave. Marceline decides to play one last song to Bubblegum, which ends up taming the dragon and allowing their escape. In the end, Marceline finally comes to terms with her past, knowing that she can't change it, but she can control the future. As of the time of recording, we don't know what happens after this, but we could hope for the best. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more similar content. Anyways, that's all for now.